Hey y'all, it's Amaya and welcome to Amaya Jade Reads. This is going to be my first video here on this account, and it's going to be some spring recommendations and my personal spring TBR for 2025. So I hope I can give y'all some great recommendations of some good reads for this spring season and talk about the books I'm excited to read this spring. If any of y'all have read any of these books and want to share your opinions in the comments or have any other recommendations, I would love to hear them, and I'm sure if anyone else sees this video they would appreciate even more recs, so don't be shy to drop those in the comment. And without further ado, let's get into these books. I'll be starting out with my spring recommendations, and then towards the end of this video we'll get into my TBR for this spring. And also, if anyone is curious, today I'm drinking the Playa Vibe Celsius Sparkling Pina Colada. And fun fact about me, I love coconut. The scent of coconut, the flavor, anything coconut is right up my alley. And I definitely needed a little bit of a pick-me-up today. So I'm gonna get a couple more sips into this and then we're gonna get into the books. If things look a little different right now from the intro to this video, my camera battery was about to die, so I let that charge for a while and I'm now getting back into filming. So if the lighting or anything changed, that is why. But I wanted to make sure I had enough battery to get through this video. And without further ado, we're going to get into my recommendations. The first recommendation I have is actually not a book, but it's a book series, and this is one of, if not my all-time favorite book series ever. That is none other than Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I could do a whole separate video talking about this series in depth, how much I love it, giving full-on spoiler-filled reviews and opinions and just discourse about this series, because I truly could talk about it forever. They're such special books to me. But to keep it short and sweet, Magnolia Parks is a young adult contemporary fiction series. That is the best way I could describe this. Maybe contemporary romance. There are definitely romantic themes and romances that happen throughout this series, but it's so much more than just about the romance or about these couples. There's found family, there's many friendships, there's very interesting family dynamics, trauma, grief, betrayal, so much drama, and it's just a glimpse into life of these very flawed characters. And I think Jessa wrote the human experience in such a raw but beautiful way, and she's depicting these characters on paper that are the farthest thing from perfect, and somehow you wind up finding love and understanding for each and every character. And I say that with my full chest, because if you've ever read Magnolia Parks, or maybe you've read the first book, or you've heard bits and pieces about the series and what it includes, you may have some judgment and some reservations, especially if you only read the first book. But it goes so much farther than that, and there truly is so much behind the scenes that happens you eventually get to explore within these books that makes you find compassion, understanding, and love for every single character in this book, no matter what they've done, which I think is the most interesting part about this series. There are certain tropes and events that happen within these books that are typically things I don't like to read about, and in my own personal life I think I would have a very hard time getting past if I ever could get past it. One of those things is cheating and very toxic, unhealthy relationships. And if that turns you off from ever wanting to start this series, please know it is so much more than just an unhealthy couple or cheating happening and that's it. It's very layered, it's very complex, and people you kind of don't think you're rooting for at the beginning, or have a very hard time understanding why they're making the choices that they're making, when you get through the end of this series, all you want is like happiness and love for them, and like you feel so much empathy for them. And I think it takes a lot to write such fully fleshed out characters that are so far from perfect, that make good calls, that make bad calls, that are dealing with their own internal struggles and issues, and you're seeing how that's affecting their friendships, their relationships. Some of them do not come from good family dynamics at all. The friend group in this book series, like the core group of main characters, I think all or mostly all went to the same boarding school together. So there's like found family and almost like codependency, and these really deep-rooted friendships that just stem from needing to rely on one another whenever they were young and growing up through boarding school. And now they're adults, and they're all living these individual, very complicated, heavy lives, but in very different ways from each other. So seeing how that overlaps is incredible. I love these books so much. It is very entertaining. It is similar to Gossip Girl in the sense that all of these people are very upper class, they're very influential, they come from big name families, they come from big money. Their life experience is very different compared to like the day-to-day average life experience. So the glitz and the glam and the drama and the stakes of some of these things are not realistic in that sense, but what is realistic, I think, is like the human experience between these characters. Jessa wrote this series with so much heart and handled some really, really hard topics in such a good way. I felt every emotion possible reading through these books. So much love, so much hurt, so much pain, frustration, just confusion, and that's how it's meant to be. And I think that is what makes this book series so interesting. Also, the setup of the series and like how you read it is a little different. So the first book is Magnolia Parks, and in this point of view, you're getting Magnolia Parks as our main female character and BJ Ballantyne as the main male character, and their point of view kind of shifts. And then book 2 is Daisy Hates. So Daisy and Julian Hates, you get their point of view and narration from in this book. Also, I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you've never read Magnolia Parks and you want to, please listen to the audiobooks. They are the best audiobooks I've personally ever listened to. The production is incredible, and there are different voice narrators for each character. It makes them feel so real. Everyone has a different voice, a different accent, a different cadence. Like, you feel like these are all real individual characters talking you through their life, and the audiobooks are so, so, so good. But we get the narration and point of view of Daisy and Julian in this one. Book 3 is Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home, and we go back to being in Magnolia and BJ's main point of view. And then book 4 is Daisy Hates, The Great Undoing. We go back and we get more of Daisy and Julian in this book. So they kind of flip-flop. I would first listen to these or read these within publishing order for sure. I have heard some people have tandem read these books. I have not personally tried that yet, but I do plan on doing a reread of these books this year. And I may try to tandem read them this next time and see how that like affects my experience with it. But each pairing of books, like the original Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates, and then book 3 and 4 is kind of its own pair as well. They're covering the same timeline and some of the same events happening, but through the eyes of different characters. So when you get to book 2, you're seeing like certain scenes and events play out we already read in Magnolia Parks, but you're in Daisy and Julian's point of view and in their life. So you're getting a very different perspective, and then seeing new things that was going on with them that we didn't see or really know about at all in this book, and then vice versa. So I really love that about this series. It's very layered, it is very much interconnected. And then book 5 is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. That is the only one I don't own a physical copy of yet. That is going to be the last Magnolia Parks book. But the whole series is not finished. I believe 2 or 3 more are coming out in the Daisy Hates books. Even though they're all together in the full series, I don't know if that sounds complicated or I'm just making it more complicated than it needs to be. But this last book that was published, Into the Dark, is the last one where Magnolia is our main character and our main point of view. The rest that are going to be published are with Daisy and Julian being like the forefront of those books. I cannot wait to read through the rest of this series. It is incredible. I could talk about it forever. I love Magnolia Parks. I love Jessa Hastings' writing. I plan on getting a tattoo, if not a couple, inspired by these books. Like, that is how much I love them. And just what they tackle. I don't want to say, because I don't want to give away any of the plot. If you do have any triggers or things you are very like sensitive to reading about, maybe go in beforehand and look those things up. With like mental health, body image issues, substance use, family trauma, relationship trauma. There's definitely some more, so if you have any sensitivities, I would look that up prior. But that series is just incredible. I love it. I cannot wait to reread it. And when I first read these myself, it was during the springtime, so I always kind of associate that series with spring. And I think it would be a great spring read for a lot of y'all. Okay, I think I'm just going to go through all of my series first, and then we can get into individual books. So the next series I have is the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. We have Done and Dusted, Swift and Saddled, and then Lost and Lassoed is book 3. There is a 4th book on its way out called Wild and Ringled. And I don't exactly remember when that book releases. Let me look that up quick. Oh my goodness, April 15th. Okay, I'm recording this on April 13th, so that is great. She's about to be out any day now. But this series is a country cowboy contemporary romance series. Lila Sage is actually the first author I've read in the cowboy romance genre. Elsie Silver is another infamous author of that genre, and I'm actually currently in the middle of one of her series and loving it. But Lila is the girl that did it for me first. These books are so good, and they're fairly short. I think they're barely over 300 pages each, and the pacing and the writing in them, they're so easy to get through. So if you want a good read for like out by the pool, out at the park, just something easy and sweet and good for the springtime, I highly recommend these. And as someone who's from the South, I'm from South Louisiana, I've lived here my whole life, something about the country hits different during like the spring and the summertime. So I had a great time with these books, but would definitely recommend reading them this time of year. Done and Dusted is a brother's best friend trope. So we have Clementine and Luke Brooks. She is the writer's family daughter, and the writer's family is who owns Rebel Blue Ranch. Luke Brooks is the best friend of the brothers, and he kind of has grown up around this family for a long time. He is like an infamous bad boy flirt in their small town, and she actually moved away to go to college. She kind of goes through a trauma at the beginning of this book and winds up moving back home because of it, and they kind of reconnect in a different way than they have before, not so much as friends. he learns about what happened with her and is helping her work through it. Their relationship was so sweet and so healthy and like so precious to read about. I absolutely loved this one. Swift and Saddled is about Ada and Gus. So Ada is an interior designer from the city, and Gus is one of the Ryder brothers, like he's one of the sons of the family, and he is tackling a new project on their ranch where he wants to renovate one of the old houses and kind of turn it into a short-term stay Airbnb, bed and breakfast kind of situation, and he hires Ada as an interior designer to come help with that project. Little do they know that Ada's first night getting into town from the city, she winds up pulling up to the Devil's Boot, which we learn about that place in Done and Dusted. It's like their local dive bar, saloon kind of situation, and she arrives really late at night. She's just looking for something to eat. That's the only place for like miles she can find that's open, so she makes a stop. Gus just so happens to be there that night. They wind up having a moment in the bar, and she thinks, you know, welcome to, what is this city called? Meadowlark. She's like, welcome to Meadowlark. I'm having a fun little night with this random cowboy. This is so crazy, and this is just going to be something I can look back on one day. It's nothing more than just this little fling and some fun for a night. She goes home to get ready for her big first day at work the next day, and in walks her boss that she's tackling this project with, who is none other than Gus. So that is their dynamic. Very fun time between these two, and I really loved that she is like a black cat and he is a lot more of like the soft one in this relationship. I thought that was very fun. I loved both of these characters. The last book, however, though, is my favorite at this point, you know, before the next book comes out. This is Lost and Lassoed, and it is about Teddy and... I'm so sorry. This is about Teddy and Gus. The brother in this book is Weston. So we have Ada and Wes. The short names were getting confusing. Ada and Wes are in book 2. And then Teddy and Gus are in book 3. They have grown up around each other in a similar sense. Teddy is Clementine's best friend, and Gus is the oldest brother in this family, and they do not like each other. You find out why they don't like each other. They have a little bit of history. Teddy is like a wild child, very free spirit. He is a lot more like reserved, cares about routine, a little bit more closed off. And they have kind of some personal reasoning between the two of them. They don't get along. But Teddy is out of work for, I believe this takes place over the summer. She is very big into fashion, so she like thrifts a lot, finds a lot of really cool like Western fashion pieces, vintage clothing, bags, accessories. That's her thing. And she's been working at a boutique for the longest time. What do you call that? Like finding pieces for them to sell. She's like a curator, if you will. And that business winds up closing down, so she's out of work. She's a little lost with herself. She's not in a relationship. She hasn't started a family yet. She doesn't feel like fully settled down and is definitely looking for like more purpose in her life. And her and Gus cross paths differently in this book. And it is a romance between the two of them. So I wouldn't call this enemies to lovers at all. That's a little dramatic, but definitely some dislike to lovers. There's some tension. The tension, the banter, the spice, the romance we wind up working up to between these two was the best, in my personal opinion, throughout this whole series. I loved Teddy and Gus together so much. In this one, Gus has a daughter, and you find out why. Like, him and the mom are not together, but they do like co-parent, and his workload starts to get a little too hectic, and he has to finally admit like he needs more help. He's like worn so thin, can't take control of everything on his own like he so desperately wants to do. And with Teddy recently losing her job and like needing to find something to do, it works out where she is the best option possible to step in and help with his daughter. But because of the dislike between the two of those, that's like the last thing he wants until he has to accept that this is the best choice he has right now. And that is kind of what initially changes their dynamic. She steps in to start helping with his daughter. Things kind of pick up from there. It was so good. I highly recommend this full series. They are interconnected, and I would recommend reading them in published order if you plan on reading all three, only because like in book one we have Emmy and Luke. They are like fully established and their life has furthered. By the time you're in book two and book three, you get like glimpses of them. So if you don't want anything like spoiled, I would read them in the order they came out in. But if you really don't care, I mean, you go into romance clearly knowing it's a romance between these two main characters, so it's not really a spoiler that they wind up getting together. You don't have to read them in order, but I do think you'd get the best experience out of doing it like that. Okay, the last series I have to recommend is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I know you may be thinking, why are you recommending a summer series for spring recs? And that is because the newest season of the Summer I Turned Pretty show adaptation comes out this June. I believe it's June 17th when season 3 is going to air. So if you start reading this series, if you haven't read it yet, and you start this spring, you have time to get through the full trilogy and watch season 1 and season 2 of the show, so you'll be all the way caught up by the time season 3 comes out. This is a young adult, very young adult, little romance trilogy. And our main character is Isabel Conklin. Everyone calls her Belly. We have her and her brother and her mother. Her mother's best friend, who is Susanna. And then Susanna has 2 sons, Conrad and Jeremiah. So these families have spent every summer together ever since the moms had children. They've been best friends for years, and then their kids have grown up together throughout the summers. But in The Summer I Turned Pretty, our main character Belly, she's older, she's grown more into herself. This is the first time she shows up for the summer, and everyone's looking at her and treating her a little bit different because she's not just a little girl anymore and just seen as like a family friend. They're seeing her as like a woman for the first time. So this is about her experience with all of that. And there is a love triangle between her and the 2 brothers. It's very like nostalgic and heartwarming and a good coming of age story for kind of being at that point in life. They always go to Cousins Beach every summer. That's where Susanna and the boys live. They have a beautiful big beach house out there, and Belly's family always stays there every single summer. And that's what this whole series is about. So season 1 of the show matches up with book 1. Season 2 matches up with book 2. Season 3 obviously is going to follow the 3rd and last book. However, it's not a 100% accurate adaptation. Like, there are characters and things that happen a little differently in the show than actually what goes on in the books. And personally, I think I enjoyed the TV show better than I actually enjoyed reading these books. They are a very young adult series, so don't expect anything super complex, super incredible writing, anything super mature. That's not what you're going to get from these books, but they're very fun. They're very easy reads. It reminds you of like being younger and falling in love for the first time and growing up for the first time. So nostalgic for the summertime. If you are someone who loves the beach and loves the summer and like the atmosphere of that, that is one thing I love so much about that show and these books as someone who loves the beach and loves the summertime. I eat it up every single time. And yeah, I think that'll be a good recommendation for the spring to have you ready for this summer when the next season is going to be out. I first up have Beach Read by Emily Henry. She's one of my favorite authors for contemporary fiction, women's fiction, contemporary romance. It kind of crosses the line between those three. But in Beach Read, our main characters are January and Augustus. They are both authors, which I love reading books about books, or books about authors and people that appreciate books. I think that is so fun. January writes romance, and she's like a best-selling romance author, while Augustus writes darker, like literary fiction and a little bit more serious of books. And certain circumstances in their life have them wind up as neighbors in neighboring beach houses. They take turns writing a book in each other's genre. So he needs to write a romance and she needs to write a literary fiction, and really push their like creative boundaries, really get out of their comfort zone, because they write almost polar opposite things as characters. They are on the surface level polar opposites, but throughout this experience they wind up finding that they have a lot in common, and they create kind of a little checklist of things to do, activities to do, places to go to help inspire the books they're each working on. So she's trying to show him what to write about in romance and all of these very like romantic, sweet, swoon-worthy things, and she's taking him on dates and these different outings, and then he's bringing her on some very interesting side quest for inspo for the book she's going to be writing. And that's kind of all I'm going to give away about this one. It does wind up being a romance between these two. Some heavy topics are covered in this book. It doesn't get incredibly heavy, but just to be cautious, maybe look up trigger warnings or like content that's going to be talked about in case you're sensitive to some of that stuff. I really, really loved this book. I think as of right now, from what I've read by Emily Henry, this is my favorite. I've read this and Book Lovers. Loved them both, but I think Beach Read definitely takes the cake. And then this is my beautiful special edition copy. That's the cover, and then look at these sprayed edges. It's like a sunset on the beach. It's so beautiful. And there's a beautiful little quote on the back. And the last book rec I have for springtime is a fantasy/romantasy. This is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I don't know what really made me want to recommend this for spring. I think it's the cover, if I'm going to be so honest. This is the discreet cover, and with like the flowers, the butterflies, the beautiful pastels. I just wanted to have this out there for my spring recs. The plot doesn't have so much to do with spring, but if you are an enjoyer of fantasy and romantasy and are looking for something other than like contemporary fiction or romance to read this time of year, and you have not read Quicksilver yet, first off, what are you doing? Second of all, please run and go pick it up. If you have Kindle Unlimited, I do believe it is available on there if you don't want to get a physical copy. It is so, so, so good. The first of her kind to tread the frozen mountains of Avelia in over 1,000 years, Saris mistakenly binds herself to Kingfisher, a handsome Fae warrior. We love Kingfisher. He has secrets and nefarious agendas of his own. He will use her alchemist magic to protect his people no matter what it costs him or her. Death has a name. It is Kingfisher of the Agen Gate. His past is murky, his attitude stinks, and he's the only way Saris is going to make it back home. Be careful of the deals you make, dear child. The devil is in the details. Yeah, go pick it up. It's so good. It's better than I imagined it was going to be. It does have a like 17 and up age recommendation because it says there are depictions of graphic violence and adult situations. For a full list of tropes and trigger warnings, you can go to Callie Hart's author like website page, and find the rest of that info out there. I love this book. I would love to be able to reread it again for the first time. So if you haven't yet, pick it up. If you want to be transported into a magical fantasy land this springtime, you want some whimsy, you want some magic, read Quicksilver and you're going to have a great time. First up on my TBR for this spring are the 2 remaining Emily Henry books that I own and have not yet read. Which is Happy Place and People We Meet on Vacation. It's about Harriet and Win. They've been together, they're engaged, and they break their engagement off. But none of their friends know that that's happened. And with their friend group, they go vacation to this same house. I believe it's like on the East Coast, like a little coastal house they go vacation at every year. And they don't want anything to change, like the dynamic of this trip, because it's so important for their friend group. So they don't tell anyone that they are no longer together, that they broke their engagement off, and they're kind of fake dating and pretending everything is okay just to get through the trip and have it feel normal. I obviously don't think that is going to last very long. I'm very excited to read Happy Place. And then we have People We Meet on Vacation, about Poppy and Alex. So they were best friends and they took a week vacation together once a year, every single year for like a decade. But something happens to them 2 years ago and they refer to it as like the time they ruined everything, and ever since they have not spoken to each other. And Poppy decides to ask Alex after all of this time if he would go on this vacation with her again, and surprisingly he says yes. So she wants to like lay everything out on the table, talk about what happened between them, see where things stand, and kind of revisit everything they left in their past. And that is what's going to happen over this trip. The premise of this one sounds so good. I've loved Emily Henry in what I've read from her so far, so I doubt these 2 will be any different, but I do really want to finally get them read before I buy any more of her list. She came out with Funny Story last year, and A Great Big Beautiful Life is going to be coming out very soon. And that one is supposed to be inspired by The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift. I cannot wait to read that book, but I want to get through these first, so when that book finally makes its way out on shelves, I can pick that up and a copy of Funny Story, and then hopefully get all the way through Emily Henry's backlist. Next up is Never by Jessa Hastings, my girl. This is a retelling of Peter Pan. Growing up, Daphne always knew Peter Pan would come and get her. When he doesn't show up for Daphne until she's 17, inexplicably full grown and with no excuse for his tardiness, Daphne doesn't know what to think. Still, she has always been told that Peter Pan is her destiny. It is beyond choice to take his hand and leap into the stars no matter what comes next. But once they make it into Neverland, she's not quite sure how to feel about Peter. And then Jameson Hook, who is the son of Peter's pirate nemesis, Captain Hook, starts to catch her eye, and she's kind of torn between the 2 of them out there in Neverland. And she doesn't know who's going to ultimately get her heart, and if either one of those boys does, if she's going to lose herself completely in that process. Unsurprisingly, the cover of this book is equally as beautiful as the rest of Jessa's books for Magnolia Parks. It is gorgeous, stunning. I love a retelling. I love a fairy tale. I love some whimsy and some magic, especially during the springtime. They're on this little meadow with like the sunrise in the background. This just looks like a good time to get into this spring. Next up, I have In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. I don't have a whole lot to say about this book because I truly don't know the premise of it, besides it being a contemporary romance. And I got this edition from a book box. I had never even read this book, and whenever I saw this edition was going to be available from Eternal Embers bookshop, I was obsessed with it. I absolutely love this like jam jar graphic, and then there's like a farmer's market little stand on the back. This is what makes me want to read it for spring, like a little springtime farmer's market with some jam. There's what looks like some wedding rings on the spine. I don't know what I'm about to get into, but I love a good contemporary romance of all times during the year, and the themes I'm kind of seeing from the book sound really good. The quote on the back says, "My world started and ended with her sitting beside me on those dark morning rides to school, and it started up all over again when I found her on my farm." I am so excited to finally read this. Another contemporary fiction I have is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is a OG contemporary romance book here in the book space, and I crazily have never read this yet, which I personally am shocked by. It is a dynamic love story that can restore anyone's faith in love. Macy is a new pediatrics resident and planning her wedding to an older, financially secure man. But when she runs into Elliot, the first and only love of her life, the careful bubble she's constructed begins to dissolve. This sounds so good. And I've heard nothing but good things from people who have already read and reviewed this book. I've been looking forward to reading it for a very, very long time, and especially during the spring. I think this will be a good, cozy, loving little read. Next up is a fantasy, kind of like folklorish fantasy magical book. It's called Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is book 1 in a series. Depending on how I like it will kind of help me decide if I want to continue the series, but I at least want to read this first book. Emily Wilde is a professor, and she journeys to a small town to start studying Fae folklore, and in doing that she discovers dark Fae magic, friendship, and love. This is the start of a heartwarming, enchanting new fantasy series. Emily herself is delightful, brilliant, but flawed, and often darkly funny. Her frustration with her feckless but charming colleague is the perfect spark, and the romance is light but hits surprisingly hard when it chooses to. So I also love that there's kind of like a soft romance between professors sprinkled into this. It sounds like a very good time, and it also doesn't seem like a very long book, so I think this will be a good little springtime read. This is Rouge by Mona Awad. This is the author of Bunny, which I read last year or 2 years ago. Bunny is a fever dream of a book. It is dark, it is satirical, it is about a cult of these college-age girls that all call each other Bunny. The lines of what is reality and what isn't start getting very blurred, and some very insane and dark and crazy things start to happen. And I'm sensing a theme, Mona. This is about Belle. This is our main character. Her mother has a mysterious death, and while she's kind of grappling with going through that, a video lures Belle into this spa that her mother was like devoted to, and it's a cult-like spa. So Belle starts to go there, and she discovers the frightening secret behind her obsession with her reflection and what lurks beyond the glass. With black humor and seductive horror, Rouge holds up a warped mirror to our relationship with mortality, the cult-like nature of the beauty industry, and the danger of internalizing its pitiless gaze. They said it's a darkly funny horror novel about a lonely young woman who's drawn to a cult-like spa in the wake of her mother's death, a Grimm brothers fairy tale for the modern age. This sounds very good, very unique. I'm really excited to see the take on like the beauty industry and kind of the negatives that come with being very obsessed with like your self-image and your appearance and how dark that can get. And I'm excited to see Mona's like witty and very unique writings take on that kind of story. I have a good bit of romance, contemporary reads, some fantasy, some cozy reads, so this is definitely different, but I was thinking if I kind of needed a palette cleanser or something to break up those books, this is a little darker, but it might be kind of fun to read in between some of these more lighthearted books. And then the last thing I have on my TBR is also very different than the rest. This is a very like serious book and crosses over a little bit into self-help, but it is The Body Keeps the Score. This book is composed from a bunch of research about trauma and how going through trauma biologically changes a person from your mind to your physical body, and how to heal from trauma. So I have wanted to read this for a very, very long time, and I think it's finally going to be something I start soon. This probably wouldn't be something I read in one sitting. Like, it's not fictional, it's not written for entertainment, but I can see myself kind of breaking this up and reading this within a few sections, annotating it, taking a couple notes from it. I'm very intrigued to read up on the research presented in this book and hopefully learn a thing or two from it. As someone who's gone through their own trauma and as someone that has chronic health conditions, I'm very like interested in seeing the connections made here and maybe learning some of those steps into healing or just having a better understanding of it. I am a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. I work in the NICU, and that is what I do full time. So as much as I love reading, it is my biggest hobby and one of the things I'm most passionate about. This is not what I do full-time in life. It's very much just a hobby for me at the moment, even though one day I would love the chance to do more in the book field, whether that's with content, working with authors, really anything in this field I would be so happy to do one day. But yeah, my actual day job and like what I went to college for to study is nursing. I've been in healthcare for over 5 years straight now, as techs and physical therapy. I've worked in different hospitals leading up to finishing nursing school and then ultimately getting my nursing license. So any books, especially like very highly rated books I can find where like science and medicine. The sun is literally setting. I'm trying to get through the rest of this TBR list, but the next book I have to show y'all is again a little bit different than everything else I've showed so far in this video, and that is The Body Keeps the Score. This book is about the brain, the body, the mind, how they're all connected and how they are all affected by trauma, and what the process of actually healing from trauma looks like. I have always wanted to read this book, and I don't think it's going to be something I read in one sitting or read front to back very quickly. It's something I kind of want to pick up and read and take my time working through. Maybe annotate, take some notes on it, because the research presented in this book is something I really want to take my time to learn from. Like, this is a more serious book. It's a little bit of self-help, a lot of science, a lot of backed research, and the mind-body connection and the impact of trauma and how that can present medically is something I've been fascinated about understanding as someone with my own trauma and chronic health issues. I'm very intrigued to see like what's going to be presented in this book, what I can take away from it, and just to have a little bit more like education established on these topics. The author of this book is Bessel van der Kolk. He is a big expert on trauma and has spent over 3 decades working with different survivors. In The Body Keeps the Score, he uses recent scientific advances to show how trauma literally reshapes both body and brain, compromising sufferers' capacities for pleasure, engagement, self-control, and trust. He explores innovative treatments that offer new paths to recovery, and it's based on his own research and that of other leading specialists in this field.